Welcome to the Poor Man's Gourmet Kitchen, where we share gourmet recipes at a low-budget wonder. Now check this out.
Several weeks ago I showed you how to transfer your wine from the primary stage to the secondary stage. So the last time you saw it, it looked something like this. Well, believe it or not, this is how it looks now. It's just been resting in a cool, dark place for the last 3 weeks. And it's time to get it racked again. So the first thing we want to do is remove our stopper and our airlock. And once again, we're just going to transfer our wine to a clean, sanitized, empty carboy. And the empty bottle should be placed lower than the full bottle. Using a siphon, we'll extract the wine. Place the hose in the empty bottle first, and very gently pump the siphon inside the full bottle. Now we're officially racking our wine to another secondary. And I'll do this about once a week for the next 3 weeks. And each time I do, it gets clearer and clearer, leaving the sediment behind. It isn't harmful and it is safe to drink, but removing it does clarify the wine. For example, here's a peach wine that I started about the same time I began this wine series. When I racked this wine from primary to secondary, it was very murky and cloudy. But each time I've racked since, it's gotten clearer and clearer. One thing I like to do is prop the opposite side of the siphon inside that bottle. It helps me to get every last drop of wine I can when I'm siphoning into the other carboy. And because I've racked this wine before, you can see that there's a lot less sediment. But let's take a look at that fermenter we were making wine in last time too. I mentioned that the bottom of that jar would collect the sediment, and as you can see, it did. Just close the valve, twist out the union, not the jar, the union. And as you can see here, we have trapped the sediment right in this mason jar here. And if you want, you can save that and pitch that into another wine, or you can just throw it out, or compost it for all I care. But just another quick attachment and a turn of this valve, we can siphon that wine into another secondary. So just racking your wine several times back and forth is pretty much the easiest way to clarify your wine. But let me show you something else you can do. This is bentonite. This stuff is cheap and it's magical. All you have to do is follow the directions on the package and add it to boiling water. And you want to stir this and make a slurry. It gets sticky, slimy, and a little bit pasty. And adding just a couple tablespoons of this mixture to each gallon of wine will help it bond to the suspended particles in the wine, and it'll drag them down to the bottom as it settles. But you really need to get this stirred well, so I purchased a wine whip, really cheap, connects to my drill, and it'll help me get this mixed up. These wine whips also help you degas your wine if you're needing to get rid of CO2. Now just top them both off with a stopper and an airlock and wait another week. Again, in a cool, dark place, preferably 68 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit. And just look at the difference only 1 week later. So if we take a look at the bottom of these carboys, you can see the bentonite sediment. You can see it in the peach wine as well. So once again, we're back to racking. And it only takes a few minutes to rack each bottle, but I want to emphasize the importance once again of using sanitized equipment. And the sediment you're left with this time does absolutely need to be thrown out. It's just gray clay, but you don't want to be drinking it. But let's do the old flashlight test and see how we're looking on clarity. How do you think it's looking so far? Tell me in the comments below. Personally, I think it's looking pretty good. Same with this one. Really vibrant. But it doesn't really matter what it looks like if it doesn't taste good. And it's time for another gravity test. The moment of truth. Drop in the hydrometer, and our second reading is 0.990. So using an ABV calculator, we'll type in our first measurement at 1.090. Our second we just read is 0.990. That equals 13.12% alcohol by volume. The peach wine is reading almost exactly the same, maybe a point off. This wine also started at 1.090, but this one I'm going to go ahead and add 0.991 equals 12.99% alcohol by volume. So we're pretty much both at 13%. So now, to prevent spoilage and preserve the wine, we need some potassium sorbate. And you'll probably remember these Camden tablets from the first wine video. The goal here is to put the yeast to sleep. Back sweetening these wines is real common, but before you do that, the yeast needs to be put in a dormant state so it doesn't reactivate the fermentation. Generally, you can use one or the other, but I like to add both. Then just give them each a quick stir, and that'll take care of adding the Camden tablet. I like to add the potassium sorbate a little bit differently, however. Now, this is a brandy bottle, but all that's in it is simple syrup, and I add the potassium sorbate in the mixture. Simple syrup is just 2 parts sugar to 1 part boiled water, and the potassium sorbate dissolves in it better. And you can sweeten your wine as much as you want, or not at all if you prefer. But I usually start out with about a 1/4 cup of this mixture for each gallon of wine. This peach wine I actually end up doubling because I believe a peach wine should be sweet. But again, that's just my personal preference. So you should do it to your specific taste as well. And what do you know? More stirring. And after this, we're pretty much done with our wines. The only thing that's left now is to give them both a taste test. Now remember, each gallon produces about 5 750 milliliter bottles of wine. So don't taste test too much if you're planning on bottling. Of course, it isn't aged yet, but let's go ahead and throw back a gulp and give her a taste. It isn't bad. In fact, I really like it. And it's only going to get better with time. But let's give this peach wine a try. And remember, neither one of these wines has been filtered, only racked into secondaries. But let's go ahead and give this one a try. Definitely sweet enough. But let's take a look at a whole glass of that red. You tell me. Is that clear enough without filtering? If you think so, then it's ready to be bottled now. But I'm going to show you how to do that in another video. And there you have it, clarifying your wine right here in the Poor Man's Gourmet Kitchen.
Thank you for watching, and be sure to stop by PoorMansGourmetKitchen.com for more recipes and exact ingredients.